Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're the place you come to when you need someone to sift through, well, just mountains of research and pull out the key insights you actually need.
And today, we're diving deep into something absolutely fundamental, cyberpsychology, the science of how this digital world we all live in affects, well, everything, our thoughts, feelings, behaviors.
Yeah, it's huge. We've gathered a ton of material for this one. It covers everything from how we build our identities online, how we kind of reinvent ourselves, all the way to digital crime, addiction, even how relationships work or don't work online.
It really does underpin so much of modern life now. For a long time, I think people saw the internet as just a tool, something separate from real life.
Exactly, like an add-on.
Yeah.
But the research is overwhelming now. It's not separate at all. Our digital lives are fundamentally reshaping how we think, how we feel, how we interact. It's changing us.
Uh-huh. So our mission today really is to take all this fascinating, sometimes dense research and synthesize it. We want to give you those key aha moments.
Right. The insights that help you understand the things you experience online every single day, maybe things you haven't quite put your finger on before. We want to connect those dots.
We're going beyond just observing what's happening. We want to get into the how and the why, the actual psychological mechanisms behind this shift from, the analog mind to the digital self.
Okay, let's get into it. We're starting right at the foundation. How we understand ourselves, our identity, inside this thing we call cyberspace. So, when we talk about cyberspace, I think instinctively we picture something physical. Maybe the cloud, servers, wires.
Right. Our brains default to physical metaphors.
Yeah.
But the crucial psychological starting point, which comes up again and again in the sources, is that cyberspace isn't physical. It's a mental construct.
A mental construct. Explain that a bit more.
Well, it's not a geographical location. It exists entirely because of human cognitive processes. It's the shared experience we create and sustain through information and interaction entirely within our minds.
Okay, so it's built by our thinking.
Exactly. And if you accept that, it means every experience you have online, every emotion, every chat, every profile you see is driven by how your brain processes the information, the cues, or sometimes the lack of cues like body language. The psychology isn't just part of it. It is the environment.
That makes sense. And if the environment is purely mental, then our sense of self within it, well, that becomes much more flexible, doesn't it?
Absolutely. This is where early pioneers like Sherry Turkle come in. Back in the days of text-based virtual worlds like MUD's multi-user dungeons.
Right, I remember those.
She famously called the computer a second self. Her work was groundbreaking because she saw these online spaces as offering this incredible opportunity for what she called identity play.
Identity play, like trying on different personas.
Precisely. The argument was the internet allowed you to reinvent yourself. And this wasn't necessarily about deception, initially anyway. It was seen as potentially liberating, a space to experiment with different aspects of yourself, maybe parts you couldn't express offline.
So, a way to find a deeper truth about yourself, perhaps.
That was the idea. A space free from the constraints of your physical body or your real-world social roles. She had this great quote, something like, "As players participate, they become authors not only of text, but of themselves, constructing new selves through social interaction."
Wow. You're writing your own character in real time.
Yeah, and constantly editing. This idea fed directly into what researchers later called the real me hypothesis.
The real me. What does that mean exactly?
It refers to those traits or characteristics that individuals genuinely possess, things they feel are core to who they are, but for whatever reason, they feel unable to express them in their offline lives.
Okay, so maybe someone who's incredibly funny and insightful in writing, but really shy and quiet in person.
That's a perfect example. The real me is the self that's held back offline, but finds expression online.
And did the research support this? That people were actually showing a truer version of themselves online sometimes?
It did, fascinatingly. Studies looked at people in places like Usenet newsgroups, early online forums. They found that individuals who felt they could express their real me online tended to form strong, meaningful relationships there.
Stronger than you might expect from just text on a screen.
Yes, and here's the kicker. They tracked these relationships over time. Even when these connections moved offline into face-to-face meetings, they often proved remarkably stable and durable. We're talking over a 2-year period.
2 years, so that really pushes back against the idea that online identities are always fake or superficial.
Exactly. For some people, the online world wasn't a place to hide, but the necessary condition to finally be authentic. The anonymity or distance provided the safety they needed.
Okay, so the internet can help reveal the real me. But there's the other side of the coin, isn't there? The strategic side. Impression management.
Right. Because the medium is so flexible, we often use it to present a carefully curated version of ourselves. Think about social media profiles, dating apps. We're crafting an image.
This is where self-discrepancy theory comes in, I suppose. SDT.
Precisely. STT helps explain this. We might present our ideal self, the person we wish we were, the marathon runner, the intellectual, the super social butterfly.
Even if reality is more couch-based.
Right. Or we might present our ought self, the version of us we think others, like potential employers or partners, want us to be. The responsible one, the agreeable one. It's often not quite the actual self.
And the technology itself makes this curation possible, even easy.
That's the key insight about computer-mediated communication, CMC. Its structure enables this optimization. Think about the offline world. You tell a bad joke at a party.
Cringe. You can feel the silence.
And you can't edit it. It happened. It's out there, immediate public.
But online?
Online, you have time. The asynchronicity, the delay between messages, is crucial. It gives you space to think, plan, draft, edit, delete, rewrite.
Until you have the perfect witty comeback or the perfectly phrased description.
Exactly. You can craft the optimal presentation of the self. Every word choice, every photo angle, every emoji can be deliberate.
This reminds me of hyperpersonal theory. The idea that sometimes online communication can feel more intense or positive than face-to-face.
Yes, hyperpersonal theory fits right in here. It argues that because senders can carefully manage their presentation, removing flaws and awkwardness.
They seem better than they might be in person.
Potentially, yes. And the receiver plays a role too. With fewer nonverbal cues like body language or tone of voice, the receiver might fill in the gaps with idealized assumptions based on the polished text or profile they are seeing.
So the sender optimizes and the receiver idealizes, leading to this hyperpersonal, better-than-real perception.
That's the core idea. The curated digital self can sometimes make a stronger positive impression, at least initially.
What about real-time stuff like video calls? You don't have as much time to edit there.
True. But even there, technology offers a different kind of self-management tool. The sources talk about the video paradox. Think about Zoom or FaceTime. You can see yourself on the screen, right?
Yeah, that little box with your own face staring back at you.
That provides instant self-feedback. You can literally see how you appear to others in real time. So you can immediately adjust your posture, fix your expression if you look bored or confused. You're actively managing your visual impression moment by moment.
Which you can't really do in a normal face-to-face chat unless you're constantly looking in a mirror.
Exactly. It's an advantage for impression management, but it comes at a cost. The research suggests this constant self-monitoring is cognitively demanding. You're performing and directing yourself simultaneously.
Sounds exhausting, actually.
It can be. Which leads to an important counterpoint to all this talk of flexible, constructed selves. There's the argument for the stable, unavoidable core self.
Meaning you can only fake it for so long?
Essentially, yes. The idea is that our actual underlying self is pretty consistent. Trying to maintain an online persona that's radically different from that core self, whether it's an idealized version or pure fiction, creates internal conflict and is psychologically draining. It's unsustainable over the long haul.
So eventually, the real you tends to leak through, or the effort just becomes too much.
That's the argument. The core self will likely surface, especially in prolonged or deeper interactions. The mask slips.
So whether we're trying to show our real me or project an ideal me, the very act of navigating this online identity space takes mental effort. And that brings us nicely to our next big topic, how this digital environment isn't just changing what we present, but how we actually think.
Right, moving from the self to the mind itself. One of the biggest shifts the digital world brought was in how information is structured. We went from predominantly linear text.
Like reading a book, page after page.
Exactly. To a world dominated by nonlinear information. Hypertext, hypermedia.
The clickable links, embedded videos, things popping up everywhere.
And our brains, which evolved over centuries to process information sequentially, had to adapt. Processing hypertext uses fundamentally different cognitive processes than reading a traditional book.
How so? What's different?
Well, with linear text, the author dictates the path. You just follow along. With hypertext, the user is constantly making decisions. Should I click this link? Is this relevant? Which path do I take through this website? Do I need to watch this video now or later?
It's constant navigation, constant choice.
Yes. And this need for path selection, navigation, and constantly assessing the potential relevance of different links, it increases what psychologists call cognitive load.
Meaning it just takes more mental effort.
It does. Your brain is doing extra work just managing the structure of the information before it even gets to deeply processing the content. And the research points out this load gets especially heavy when hypertext is, quote, laden with multiple links per node.
So pages crammed with links everywhere are particularly taxing.
Exactly. You're spending so much mental energy deciding where to go next, you might actually absorb less of the information itself. It's like a tax on your attention.
And this environment of information overload and cognitive strain, it forces us to take shortcuts, doesn't it? Especially when judging if something online is trustworthy.
Absolutely. We simply don't have the time or, frankly, the mental bandwidth to deeply evaluate every single piece of information we encounter online. So we develop mental shortcuts, or heuristics, rules of thumb.
Okay, what kind of heuristics do we use to judge credibility online? The sources mentioned a few specific ones.
They did. One is the realism heuristic. This is the tendency to believe information more readily if it's presented in an audio-visual format, like a video or a slick infographic.
Why? Because it feels more like the real world.
That's the idea. It seems more immediate, more tangible, less abstract than just plain text. Our brains seem wired to give more weight to things that look and sound real. Think about a well-produced documentary clip versus a dry text report on the same topic.
The video often feels more convincing, even if the information is identical.
Right. Then there's a huge reliance on the professional appearance heuristic. This is all about the look and feel.
So if a website looks slick, modern, well-designed, we trust it more.
Pretty much. We associate professional design with legitimacy, resources, and authority. It's a shortcut based on aesthetics. The problem, of course, is that a slick design doesn't guarantee accurate information. Anyone can hire a good web designer.
So style over substance can easily fool us. What else?
The endorsement heuristic. This is basically social proof. We look for signals that other people trust this source.
Like lots of positive comments, high view counts, lots of shares.
Exactly. If it seems popular or widely accepted, we use that as a proxy for trustworthiness. If everyone else thinks it's credible, it probably is.
But that's risky too, especially with things like Wikipedia, right? Where anyone can contribute, but it still looks professional and gets tons of traffic.
Precisely. The heuristic doesn't distinguish between genuine expert consensus and just crowd noise or manipulation. Popularity doesn't equal validity.
Okay, any others?
There's also a negative heuristic, the persuasive intent heuristic. This kicks in when we detect obvious signs of selling.
Like blatant advertising, pushy sales language, clear commercial goals.
Yes. If the user spots that the primary goal seems to be persuasion or sales, rather than information, they immediately discount the credibility. It's a quick way to filter out biased content. Our brain says, okay, this isn't objective, move on.
So we're using these heuristics constantly to manage the flood, but what about how we manage multiple streams of information at the same time? Multitasking. We all do it.
We certainly think we do. Media multitasking, or MMT, surfing the web while texting, while maybe half watching TV, it feels like a modern superpower.
But the research paints a very different picture, doesn't it?
It really does. There's one study called a massive disconnect. They measured people's actual multitasking ability using objective tests and compared it to how much those people reported multitasking in their daily lives.
And what did they find?
They found a negative correlation.
Wait, negative? So the people who multitask the most are actually the worst at it?
That's what the data showed. It seems the heaviest multitaskers are often laboring under an illusion of competence. They mistake the habit of switching frequently for the skill of processing multiple streams effectively. It's like a Dunning-Kruger effect for attention.
Wow, that's humbling and kind of worrying.
It is. And it gets worse. The mere presence of your smartphone, even if it's often face down on the table, can be enough to hurt your performance on complex cognitive tasks.
Just having it there. How?
The theory is your brain is expending unconscious effort to inhibit the urge to check it. That background inhibition drains mental resources that you need for the main task you're trying to focus on.
So part of your brain is always fighting the phone's pull, even if you're not aware of it?
It seems so. And when you do get interrupted, the cost is significant. Research looks specifically at email interruptions in the workplace.
Okay, what's the damage when that notification pops up and you switch tasks?
On average, it takes about 64 seconds for a person to get back to their original task at the same level of speed and focus they had before the email interruption.
64 seconds over a minute just to recover from one email check.
Yes. And that's not including the time spent actually reading and dealing with the email itself. It's the time lost during the mental gear shifting back to the original work.
If you get, say, 10 interruptions like that in an hour, that's over 10 minutes of peak focus just gone, vanish into switching costs.
Exactly. It adds up incredibly quickly across a day or a week. This constant fragmentation of attention, driven by the digital environment, has a massive impact on productivity and deep thinking.
And presumably, it impacts our relationships too, which is where we're headed next. All this distraction and mental juggling must spill over into how we connect with people.
Absolutely. The same technologies that fragment our attention are also the primary tools many of us use to build and maintain our closest relationships. It's a real paradox.
And the effects, both good and bad, seem particularly strong for younger couples who've grown up with this technology being completely integrated into their social lives.
That's often the case. Let's start with the positives, though. Technology can actually enhance intimacy sometimes, leveraging that online disinhibition effect we touched on earlier.
Meaning the anonymity and the asynchronous nature make it easier to open up.
Yes, feeling less on the spot, having time to formulate thoughts. It can make people feel safer, disclosing vulnerable information or expressing deep feelings they might struggle with face-to-face.
I can see how that helps build connection. What about handling conflict? You mentioned asynchronicity helps there too.
It can. Think about arguing via text or email versus shouting face-to-face. The enforced delay, having to pipe, read, think before responding, can act as a built-in cooling-off period.
So instead of an immediate, maybe angry, emotional reaction.
You have time to regulate that emotion, think through your response, and perhaps address the issue more rationally. Some couples report it helps them avoid escalating arguments and get to the core problem more effectively.
Interesting. A forced pause for thought. What else?
Our devices also act as relationship archives. Think about your phone. It holds years of text conversations, photos, videos, a whole history of the relationship.
A digital scrapbook almost.
Exactly. And this stored history can be really valuable. During tough times or disagreements, couples can look back at these records to reaffirm their bond, remember shared joys, and remind themselves of the love and affection that's there. It's an instant resource for relationship maintenance.
Are there differences in how men and women use this tech for relationships?
Some research suggests women might use various communication channels like texting or social media a bit more frequently than men for general relationship upkeep.
Okay.
But when it comes to core maintenance behaviors like explicitly talking about the relationship or reassuring commitment, both men and women use these tools pretty similarly. They both use CMC to express openness about the relationship status and future and to offer assurances of their desire for it to continue. The technology serves those fundamental needs for both.
Okay, so there are definite upsides, but then there's the friction. The term the sources used was technoference.
Yes, technoference. Technology interference in relationships. And it's a major source of conflict for many couples.
What's the main psychological mechanism here?
A key one is the violation of expectations. We generally enter interactions, especially with partners, expecting mutual attention and presence.
Right. You expect the person you're talking to actually be talking to you.
Precisely. So when your partner is constantly glancing at their phone, checking notifications, scrolling through a feed while you're trying to have a conversation, it violates that basic expectation of attentiveness.
And that feels bad. It feels dismissive.
Exactly. Expectancy violation theory predicts this leads directly to negative effect feelings like annoyance, resentment, sadness, feeling unimportant. It sends a signal, consciously or not, that the device or whatever's on it is more important than the person right in front of them.
Plus, just the sheer amount of time we spend on devices reduces the time available for real connection.
That's the displacement effect. More time staring at screens inevitably means less time for face-to-face interaction, shared activities, or just quiet connection. Quality time gets squeezed out.
Okay, shifting from maintaining relationships to starting them, online dating, it's completely changed the landscape. But who is actually drawn to it? There seem to be conflicting ideas.
There are two main hypotheses that often get discussed. First, the social compensation hypothesis, or SEH.
Compensation, meaning it helps people who struggle socially offline.
That's the core idea. It predicts that people who are shy, socially anxious, or maybe less confident in their dating skills offline are more likely to turn to online dating.
Why? Because it feels safer.
Yes. The perceived lower risk. You have more control over your self-presentation, the anonymity reduces fear of immediate rejection, and the asynchronicity gives you time to craft messages. It feels less daunting than approaching someone cold in a bar.
And did research support this? Did it actually help anxious people?
Early studies did find support for SCH. They found that socially anxious individuals often felt more comfortable revealing their true selves online and could form successful relationships that way. The technology compensated for their offline difficulties.
Okay, but then there's the counterargument, the rich get richer hypothesis.
Right, the RGRH. This suggests the opposite, that people who already have good social skills, who are confident and extroverted
Do
offline,
they just take those skills online and clean up?
essentially, yes.
Yeah.
They transfer their existing social competence to the online environment and are even more successful because the platform maybe amplifies their reach or allows them to be more efficient. The socially skilled become even more successful, richer.
So which one is it? Does online dating help the shy or mostly benefit the already confident?
The evidence is, well, it's mixed, and it seems to be evolving. Some earlier research leaned towards compensation, but as online dating has become mainstream, some newer studies show that people with lower dating anxiety might actually use the platforms more actively.
So maybe it's less about compensation now and more how everyone dates.
It could be. It suggests that while the tech can offer compensation, general social and dating competence still plays a big role online, maybe even more so now that it's so crowded and competitive. It's a complex picture.
Okay, one last and maybe heavier topic in relationships online. Infidelity. Is cyber infidelity a real thing?
Oh, absolutely. There's broad agreement among researchers that internet infidelity is a genuine phenomenon with serious consequences for relationships.
How is it typically defined? Is it just flirting online?
It can be more specific.
Yeah.
Young and colleagues defined a cyber affair as a romantic and/or sexual relationship that starts online and is primarily maintained through electronic communication, email, chat, virtual world, whatever. The key is the emotional and/or sexual focus happening predominantly online, outside the primary relationship.
So it doesn't necessarily require physical contact to be considered an affair by this definition?
Correct. And when you look at specific behaviors, like cybersex, which is defined as synchronous, real-time online communication where people talk about sexual fantasies.
Like sexting or erotic role play in chat rooms.
Exactly. That behavior is consistently seen as an act of infidelity by most people, including partners who discover it.
Even if the people involved say it's just fantasy.
Even then. Interestingly, studies have looked at people in, say, married and flirting chat rooms who are actively engaging in cyberflirting or cybersex. Even some of those participants acknowledge that what they're doing crosses a line and constitutes infidelity, or could reasonably be seen that way by their partner.
So the emotional investment in the shared fantasy, even just through text, feels like a betrayal of the primary commitment for many.
It seems the psychological boundary of exclusivity is violated for many people, regardless of the physical dimension. The mind makes the virtual interaction feel very real in terms of its impact on the relationship.
Which brings us full circle to the power of this mentally constructed space, and unfortunately, to its darker sides. Let's move into the potential harms and dangers.
Right. We have to address the potential downsides, the psychological harm, and the problematic behaviors that can emerge from our deep engagement with the digital world. A big one is problematic use and addiction.
Internet addiction. Is that viewed similarly to, say, gambling addiction?
Yes, the research generally frames problematic internet use, or PIU, as a behavioral addiction. It shares core features with non-substance addictions like compulsive gambling, things like preoccupation, loss of control, tolerance, withdrawal symptoms when prevented from using, and continuing despite negative consequences.
And video games often come up in this discussion. Is excessive gaming an addiction or just really intense engagement?
That's a central debate. Is it a true pathology, an addiction that changes brain function? Or is it more like an extreme, maybe problematic pattern of behavior driven by enthusiasm that causes life problems, but isn't necessarily the same as addiction?
Where does the official thinking land on this?
It's still evolving. But significantly, the American Psychiatric Association included internet gaming disorder in the research appendix of the DSM-5, their diagnostic manual.
What does being in the appendix mean?
It means it's not an official, fully recognized disorder yet, but there's enough evidence to flag it as a condition needing much more systematic research. The proposed criteria mirror classic addiction symptoms: tolerance, withdrawal, sacrificing other life areas for gaming, inability to cut back.
And beyond gaming, our dependency on devices creates these very modern anxieties, doesn't it? Like nomophobia.
Ah, nomophobia, yes. That's the specific fear related to not having your mobile phone.
Fear of being out of contact. Or the battery dying.
Both. It's the anxiety of being unreachable, having a dead battery, losing the phone, or being somewhere with no signal. That little jolt of panic you feel when you realize you left your phone at home or see the battery hit 1%. That's nomophobia.
It really shows how tied these devices are to our sense of safety and connection, like a digital umbilical cord.
It's a powerful illustration of that integration. Now, another area where the internet creates anxiety, ironically, is health information.
Right, Dr. Google. People go online looking for reassurance about symptoms.
That's often the motivation, yes, to reduce uncertainty and feel better. But it frequently has the opposite effect, leading to a state researchers call cyberchondria.
Cyberchondria.
Uh,
So health anxiety fueled by online searches.
Exactly. It's characterized by excessive health-related searching online, where the searching itself increases anxiety rather than relieving it. It becomes a compulsive cycle of seeking reassurance that only makes the underlying health anxiety worse.
And is there a danger in what information people find?
A huge danger. Research found something really alarming. When people use general search engines like Google or Bing to look up common, everyday, usually harmless symptoms, think like a headache or a minor cough,
Okay.
they were disproportionately directed towards information about serious, often rare diseases.
Seriously, the search results bias towards the scary stuff.
A sort overwhelmingly so. One study found that around 70% of people searching for minor symptoms ended up clicking through and reading about much rarer, more severe conditions.
Why would that happen?
It's likely due to how search algorithms work, prioritizing sensational or highly engaging content, perhaps, or maybe just the sheer volume of information available about serious illnesses compared to reassurance about minor ones. Whatever the reason, it funnels anxious people directly towards information most likely to increase their anxiety. A terrible feedback loop.
Wow. Oh, okay, so the internet can amplify anxieties. Let's talk about deliberate harm, cybercrime. How do researchers categorize these kinds of offenses?
David Wall's typology from 2001 is still quite useful. He broke cybercrime into 4 main types.
What are
First, cyber trespass. This is basically breaking into systems, hacking, cracking, malware deployment, unauthorized access. Second, cyber deceptions and thefts. This is a broad category covering online fraud, phishing, identity theft, illegal copying of digital content like software or movies, anything involving trickery for gain or unauthorized taking of digital property.
Got it.
Third, cyber pornography and obscenity. This deals with the creation and distribution of illegal or non-consensual sexual content online.
And the fourth?
Cyber violence. This involves using the internet to inflict psychological harm or threats, things like cyberstalking, online harassment, hate speech, cyberbullying.
It basically maps traditional crime categories onto the digital space.
Pretty much. The motivations are often old, but the methods and reach are new.
Let's focus on one of the most common ones, phishing. Those fake emails trying to get your passwords or bank details. Why do they still work so often?
Psychology plays a huge role. One study looked closely at how people responded to a realistic phishing email. This email threatened that they'd lose their account if they didn't provide sensitive information within 7 days.
So it created urgency.
Exactly. And the researchers found that people who paid more attention to these visceral triggers, the language emphasizing urgency, threat, potential loss, were significantly more likely to fall for it and reply with their data.
It triggers an emotional, panicked reaction.
Yes. Conversely, people who paid more attention to the phishing deception indicators, things like bad grammar, suspicious sender address, generic greetings, were significantly less likely to respond.
So catching the red flags requires careful observation overriding the panic.
Right. But here's the really critical finding. The amount of cognitive effort people reported spending thinking about the email, how hard they analyzed it, was not significantly related to whether they responded or not.
Wait, so thinking hard about it didn't necessarily protect them?
Apparently not. Phishing seems effective precisely because it often bypasses deep rational analysis. It hijacks the emotional system with urgency and fear, prompting an impulsive action before the slower, more careful cognitive checks can fully engage.
It's an emotional shortcut to tricking us.
A very effective one, unfortunately. This idea of reduced accountability and consequence also fuels other forms of online antisocial behavior, like griefing.
Griefing? That's in online games and virtual worlds, right? People deliberately trying to ruin the experience for others.
Exactly. Its behavior aims squarely at disrupting the game, annoying other players, and undermining the sense of community or safety within that virtual space.
Why do people do it? What motivates them?
Fu and Koivisto identified 4 main clusters of motivation back in 2004. First, game-influenced. The anonymity and perceived lack of rules in the online space might make some players feel like this behavior is okay, expected, or just part of the game's culture.
It's just a game, so anything goes.
Kind of. Second, player influenced. This stems from the individual's personality. People who are naturally spiteful, vindictive, or just enjoy causing trouble find an outlet online.
Okay, so personal traits.
Third, griefer influenced. This is about social dynamics within the griefing community. Wanting to build a reputation among other griefers, establish a group identity, impress their peers through disruptive acts.
Performing for an antisocial audience.
Yes. And finally, self-influenced. This is about the individual's internal drivers, the simple desire to exert power over others, feel dominant, and derive enjoyment, maybe even a thrill, from watching the negative reactions they cause.
And the fact that their avatar or username often can't be easily tied back to their real-world identity makes it much easier.
That's crucial. The reduced accountability is massive. In the physical world, actions have immediate social consequences. Online, especially with anonymity, those consequences are often removed or significantly delayed, which allows these darker impulses to surface more readily for some individuals.
That lack of consequence, it really seems to enable a lot of the negative behaviors we see online. Hashtag tag outro. Well, we have certainly covered a lot of ground today. We've journeyed through the psychology of cyberspace from the very nature of our digital identities.
Yeah, looking at how we construct ourselves online, sometimes using the tech to show a real me hidden offline, other times crafting that ideal self through careful editing and impression management, thanks to things like asynchronicity.
We saw how just using the internet fundamentally changes how we think, increasing cognitive load with hypertext and forcing us towards mental shortcuts, those heuristics, for judging credibility, relying on things like look and feel or popularity cues.
And the rather stark news about multitasking, that the people who do it most are often the worst at it. And even just having our phone nearby drains our focus. Plus, that staggering 64-second recovery time from simple interruptions.
Then we moved into relationships. How technology can both help intimacy through disinhibition and careful communication, but also create huge friction through technoference and violating expectations of attention.
We touched on the complexities of online dating, the ongoing debate between compensating for shyness versus the socially skilled getting richer, and the clear perception of cybersex as infidelity, highlighting how real the virtual can feel.
And finally, we confronted the digital dark side. Problematic use, potential gaming disorder, the specific anxiety of nomophobia, and the trap of cyberchondria fueled by search algorithms.
And how cybercrime, like phishing, exploits our emotional responses and cognitive shortcuts, while behaviors like griefing thrive in environments with reduced accountability.
It really underscores how blurred the lines have become, doesn't it, between the online world and the offline world. What happens in cyberspace isn't separate anymore. Its effects are deeply real, measurable, impacting our brains, our emotions, our connections.
Absolutely. The separation is largely illusory now.
So here's something to leave you with, a final thought to chew on. We know the internet is now, for better or worse, our primary source of information. We rely on it constantly. Yet, as we've discussed throughout this deep dive, our brains heavily rely on those quick, often unreliable, surface-level heuristics. Does it look professional? Are lots of people talking about it to decide what's true?
While at the same time, deception online is specifically engineered to bypass our critical thinking and hit those faster emotional triggers, like urgency or fear.
Exactly. So the question is this. In this environment of infinite, instantly available, but incredibly hard to verify information, knowing our own cognitive shortcuts and vulnerabilities, how do we actually train ourselves, train our brains, to consistently distinguish the trustworthy signal from the very, very convincing noise?
That's the challenge, isn't it? Something we all need to keep wrestling with.